Hi, I'm Darryn Farrugia and welcome. Okay, so I have managed to put off doing a video on the Blushda for as long as I could, and I promised myself I wouldn't do one just because there are so many videos out there on the Blushda, which is really such a great lick, a great pattern, a great sounding, and not so difficult to play pattern, lick, whatever it is you want to call it. However, I caved, and specifically I wanted to do something a little different with it. Not that this hasn't been covered before, I'm sure, but I wanted to do one where we played the Blushda over triplets. So let's backtrack a little bit and let's have a look at the rudiment from which this is derived. There's a poster which is the Percussive Arts Society 40 International Rudiments, and it's a collection of rudiments, of 26 standard rudiments, some Swiss rudiments, and some, I guess, some mutations of some rudiments. And there's a rudiment on there called the Flam drag. So that's the one we're going to focus on first. So the Flam drag is like a Flam triplet or a Flam accent, which is this. But the only difference is that we take that middle note of the triplet and we turn that into a diddle, which basically means we're turning it into 2 16th notes and we're playing a double stroke. So it goes from this to this. So that's the Flam drag rudiment. What we're going to do now is take the left side of that pattern, or beat 2 for example, so that's the side that starts with the left hand. That would look and sound like this. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and So there you have it. That's the Blushda. That's the Blushda played over triplets. Now all we need to do is just change a couple of things dynamically. The first thing I want to do is actually increase the volume of that flam, which is played with the right hand in this case, because that's the limb that's actually going to move around the toms. And then we're also going to take the third note of the triplet and play that as an accent also. So now we get this. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and I'll play the same thing again, except this time I'm going to take that flam or that grace note, which I've accented, and I'm going to play that on the floor tom. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and Now, there's a couple of things that you can do to fatten this up even more. One thing is to play the left hand accents when you're playing those on the snare drum, to play them as rim shots. And the other thing I like to do is to increase the gap between the grace note and the primary stroke. So I've talked about this in a video called Flam Symmetry. If you want to check that out, I'll leave a link to that in the description below. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the left hand accents on the snare drum as rim shots, and I'm just going to try and widen the gap between the grace note and the primary stroke, in this case the note between the floor tom and the snare drum. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and So let me play that in context for you. I'm going to play 1 bar of time in a kind of loosish jazz feel, and then 1 bar of that lick. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can break the Blushda down to 3 partials. The first partial is the flam, right hand and left hand. The second partial is the diddle, the two rights, and then the third partial is that left hand accent. So flam, diddle, accent, flam, diddle, accent. Now, because we're playing this over a triplet, which is a group of 3 notes, we can then displace this pattern so that we can start on a different part of the pattern. So let me explain. I'm going to start on a different part of the pattern, but the order of those 3 partials, let's say, remains the same. So in this case, I'm going to displace it and start with the left hand accent on the snare drum. That'll be followed by the flam, and then the diddle will make up the third partial, or the third note of the triplet. And that will sound like this. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and Now this is a really interesting sounding lick because it puts the flam in the middle of the triplet, which kind of is a little difficult to play, and certainly it's difficult because you'd kind of want it to, you want to hear it as beat 1, but we don't want that to happen. We definitely want to keep that strong flam in the middle note of the triplet. Let me play this for you in context. I'm going to play 1 bar of time, and I'm going to play 1 bar of this displaced blushda. And in order to resolve this, I need to come out on beat 1 with the left hand. That's the way the sticking will work in this basic context. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And because it's a group of 3, then there's also 1 more displacement. So in this case, this version will start with the diddle on beat 1, followed by the left hand accent, and then the third partial, the third note of the triplet will be the flam. So slowly on the snare drum, that would sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let me orchestrate that and play that within the context of time. So same deal, 1 bar of time, 1 bar of the fill. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the blushda over triplets followed by 2 displacements. Now, the idea is ultimately that we can throw any of these versions around the drum set, whether we're playing time or whether we're soloing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to improvise a little bit. I'm going to play all sorts of stuff, but I do want to throw those patterns in amongst my vocabulary. So let's have a crack at this. 1, 2, 1. So that's the blushda over triplets and a couple of variations of that. It's a great lick to play if you're kind of playing in the loose jazz style, and it's just a lot of fun to play. Experiment with your orchestrations. You don't necessarily just need to stick to the toms, but you can include the cymbals in all of that and make it your own somehow. You know, come up with ways of playing it that, you know, feel comfortable to you and maybe sound a little different to the way that everyone else is doing it. Anyway, if you want to download a copy of the PDF that will accompany this lesson with these ideas, then I'll leave a link to that below. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you know when I've uploaded a video, which is every week. So until next week, have a great week, happy practice, and see you all soon. Bye. I think that's what I said. I'm sure that's what I said. Let's start that again. The rudiment in question is the... Oh, God. That was very good.